he later became mayor of Palo Alto, and for 2 years. And my other grandfather was principal of Los Altos High School, not far from here, who believed that, everyone had to be an educator. That was the apogee of success. Anything south of that was failure. So the rest of us have failed pretty much in his eyes. But in 1971, one day, I never saw my dad. He was always at the White House working that year. And the only time I saw him was to go there and visit. Now, wandering around the White House as a kid, back then it was totally different, not all the security that you find today, looking for the code machine. And I ran into an assistant to Kissinger's who said, "Young man, would you like to shake the hand of Henry Kissinger?" I didn't know who Kissinger was. So I shook Kissinger's hand. He was in the adjacent office, and the National Security Advisor to the President. And, you carried my bag up in the car. I'm leaving on a trip. Sure, picked up the black bag, walked down to the door, dropped his bag off on West Executive Drive. And I said, where are you going? And he said, "Don't tell anyone, it's a secret."
That's great.
I'm going to China. So, my connection to the relationship, I carried the guy's bag to the outside the White House. 11 years old, I had no idea who he was or what it meant to be going to China. I processed it later. But my friends in China call that period 1971, 1972, when we first went in. 中国准备进入世界强. China preparing to enter the world. We had no trade. We were fighting each other in Vietnam, we forget. And a few years before, China had lost 400,000 men on the Korean Peninsula, including the son of Mao Zedong, who was buried there. And it was in the throes of the Cultural Revolution. We had nothing, no connection. And if you can imagine, today's world, President of the United States flying Air Force One into a far-off country with which we have no relationship at all, a hostile country, and making a relationship, building a friendship. Not militarism, but diplomacy. And Nixon stepped off the plane and shook the hand of Zhou Enlai, and it was a friendship, a handshake that changed the world. And if you track the relationship for 40 years, you have candidates who, during the campaign, so I went first to China with Reagan. Reagan said in 1980, "I'm going to pull the ambassador from Beijing and re-recognize Taiwan." That's how deep the discussion got. And China, of course, would have been infuriated. But that was the politics of the time. He was elected president and saw that in order to get things done, he had to bring in China to the conference. And that's the early 80s, when China was not nearly the economic power that they are today. Bill Clinton runs in 1992, and he talks about the butchers of Beijing. It gets on, George H.W. Bush, criticizes him for his pro-engagement policy, gets elected president, and sees the world a little differently. Barack Obama, in 2008, criticizes George W. Bush for going to the Olympics in Beijing. And then people get elected, and the world all of a sudden looks a little different. And so what happens? Republicans and Democrats alike, they get into office, and they see that it's a very complicated relationship. A lot of interests, economic, security, culture, and international collaboration. And if you want to fix the issue with Iran and weaponization, you got to get China's cooperation. If you want to get stability on the Korean Peninsula, you have to work with China. If you want to get, some sense of stability in the South China Sea, you got to work on solutions with China. You want to work on debt issues in Europe, you got to work with China. You want to work on the environmental issues. So, as the world's largest emitter of CO2 greenhouse gases. So as governor of Utah, I used to make the claim, which I think is accurate, that we're all downstream, and a lot of the stuff that China would put in the air would come across the jet stream, across the Pacific Ocean, land on the doorstep. A percentage of the overall on the coast of California. Some even would blow inland, and I'd say, we can only do so much unilaterally. You got to work together multilaterally or bilaterally to fix the issue. So that's a long way of saying you have to discount a lot of what's taking place during the campaign. What we really need is a full-blown, comprehensive discussion about what our long-term interests are, which we've never had that discussion. We've never had a discussion on where our shared interests are and how together we can work on better communities, how together we can work on expediting healthcare to the poor, how together we can get our scientists together to find a cure for cancer, how together we can work on emissions that affect everybody. There's so much that we can do that we're not even scratching the surface on. So discount a lot of the political talk today and hope that whomever is in office has the foresight to say, my job is to handle America's interests today and for tomorrow. And the tomorrow is going to be the United States and China for as far as the eye can see in the 21st century. That will be the relationship that must be worked on.
Very good. I hope our candidates have an answer like this to some of these issues. Really appreciate that.
Well, now here's what happens. You know, I'll give you a sense of being on the debate stage. You know, when you're running for president. For those of you who haven't run for president, it's pretty awesome. And you get, you know, somebody on the far end of the stage, you know, who within, 2 minutes declares war on 5 countries. And a crowd goes wild, whoops it up. And the next guy says, well, I'm going to, do this or that, tariff wise in China. Crowd goes wild, comes around to me, poor old me on the side. And I said, I can't say that. I have to tell the truth. And I just have to say how the thing really works. And what we're going to have to do as a country to prepare for the future and deal with the reality. Catalina, no applause. But no, so